Does this look... I'm convinced no one really knows how to put on a beret. So welcome, lovelies, to another episode of Stories and Steeps. Are we almost halfway through December now? Yes. Can we pretend like it's still fall for this video? Please do, because today's Stories and Steeps is going to be a dark academia theme. So all of the books that I read in November were dark academia sort of books. If you didn't watch my last Stories and Steeps video, it is a video series that I do on the channel where I talk about what books I read each month, and then I pair teas that I have with the books. So I only got to 4 books this month, and actually one of them I haven't even finished because it sort of became December and I just wanted to switch to Christmassy reads. But we're going to include that one anyway because I have a tea to go with it based on how much of it I read that I think really pairs well with the book. So without further ado, let's get into the books. Okay, so we're going to actually start with the one that I have not finished. This one I got at the bookstore. I went to Barnes & Noble and I just happened to see this. It is called The Dante Club. It's interesting because the characters in it are real. It takes place around, 1865 in Boston. And let me just read you the back. Boston, 1865, a series of murders, all of them inspired by scenes in Dante's Inferno. Only an elite group of America's first Dante scholars, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Oliver Wendell Holmes, James Russell Lowell, and J.T. Fields can solve the mystery. With the police baffled, more lives endangered, and Dante's literary future at stake, the Dante Club must shed its sheltered literary existence and find the killer. So I thought this was kind of a fun twist on the dark academia idea because it's not student. I feel like a lot of dark academia books are more about the students at universities or colleges, and this is more about authors. Some of them are professors as well, so that works too. And obviously it has the murder mystery angle, so that's I feel like it all comes together to be pretty dark academia. And the tea that I chose for this one is, once again, all of the teas for this episode come from 2 of my favorite tea businesses that I buy a lot of my tea from, and it's the same 2 as last time, so I'm sorry if this gets repetitive. It's not the same teas, but a lot of my teas are from the same 3 people, so you'll probably see more of the third tea maker in the December video. But these are all from Gnat and Bee and what used to be Altar and Leaf but is now called the Wild Soma, and once again I will post the links down below. The Wild Soma is closed for the holidays, I believe, so the website isn't up and running, but if you just follow her on Instagram, then you should be able to know when she comes back up. Also, I think you can subscribe to a newsletter on her website so that you know. So the one for the Dante Club is called Magpie Chai. So it is a rooibos base with lemongrass, dried apple slices, ginger root, cinnamon chips, star anise, clove, peppercorns, coconut slivers, vanilla bean, a little magic, and a lot of love, which she always puts on her labels, I think is the sweetest thing. As you can see, it is a very chunky, thick boy. It has a lot of good pieces of yummy goodness in there. The spices are just big chunks. The peppercorns are whole, big chunks of coconut. It's a very delicious tea. And I picked it just because it is a little brighter. It does have the coconut and the lemongrass, but I just felt like this sort of spicy combination of the spices went with this book. It's kind of hard to explain because I feel like this is even, sort of old-timey. It's in 1865. And this kind of feels like a much more modern tea flavor blend, but it just, I don't know, there was just something about sort of the spicy punchiness that I feel like really works with the book, especially kind of it has those peppercorns and really extra spicy spices, which Dante's Inferno, let's be honest, is spicy. So yeah, and this is by Matthew Pearl. And once again, I have not finished this yet because I kind of switched to cozy Christmas books, but I'll probably come back to it and finish it up at the beginning of next year. So, and I will drink this tea while I do that. Okay, up next we have the reason why I didn't get to as many books this month. And that is because The Secret History by Donna Tartt took me longer than I thought. It doesn't look really any bigger than the other books. It is longer. The page count is higher, I think, than the other ones I read. I mean, the book doesn't look thicker. Also, I bought this copy used on Amazon and it came, I think it got squished even in the mail. It was just like in an envelope, so the condition's not great. But I like to buy a lot of my books used, and if I can't get to a bookshop or something, used bookstore, then I buy them used on Amazon, just because, especially if I've never read it, I like to buy just kind of a, you know, not a special copy, one that I can just take with me and throw in my purse, and if it gets beat up, that's okay. And then if it's something that I really enjoy, I'll often go back and buy a nicer edition. So apologies for this crazy lumpy book. But anyway, yeah, this was a dense one. It wasn't a hard read, but it definitely took me a long time. There's a lot happening. It is a little bit longer. It's just denser than I thought it was going to be. So this one took me the most time of all the books that I read. I did enjoy it. I will say it was written in, I believe, the 90s. This is the first time I'm reading all of these, by the way. I know a lot of these have been out. Obviously, this one's been out since the 90s. And some of them have been out for several years. So a lot of people have probably already read these. But if you watched my previous Stories in Steeps video, you know that I sort of did a lot of just reading random whatever I came across at the library. I wasn't really up to date on like new releases or anything. So I really haven't read a lot of books that most people have read. And then I've like read a lot of other random books. So this one has obviously been out for a long time. You can kind of tell when you read this. I feel like a lot of language is used that authors maybe wouldn't use nowadays. Racial slurs and sort of homophobic slurs, things that kind of make me uncomfortable to read, honestly. I have no problem with like swear words, you know, like if you could drop the F-bomb all you want, like that's fine. But the other F word is in this, and racial slurs. And they certainly are all in the context of trying to show who the characters are and to show that the characters are racist or, you know, have homophobic tendencies or whatever the thing is. But I just feel like maybe if this book had been written today, an author may have used other ways to get that across without actually using the words. So if you think that that would be an issue for you, just be forewarned that there is a decent amount of that in this book. That being said, I did enjoy it. It is pretty heavy. It's basically about a group of students, sort of from the point of view of a new student to this college, and he joins this group of like Greek students that have this professor that's very selective. There's only a few students in his class, and he sort of sees this group as really mysterious and elite, and so then he ends up with the group, and then like really some business goes down. The character really goes, you know, you sort of see the character's journey and realizing that he has gotten himself into this mix, but also he just loves these other characters, the friends that he's made. And it's just a really interesting psychological idea. A lot of what these students do is based on kind of like the classic Greek mentality, these different things that they did or that they believed in. And yeah, I don't know. It gets, you know, there's something happens. Yeah. Whew. I don't know what to say except that it's worth reading for sure. That honestly, I guess like the idea of dark academia is like it's dark, like some stuff goes down in pretty much all of these. So they are all kind of like heavy like none of them were just like a fun, jaunty read, you know? It was like, oh my, like these things are happening. So yeah, for this one, I chose It's called Philosopher, and this one is from Gnat and Bee. Dark and earthy with chaga mushrooms for pensive mornings or afternoons. Philosopher. And like Greek philosophers, I mean, come on. Like, I feel like all of this is just really perfect for this book. All of the ingredients are Yunnan black tea, Assam black tea, chaga mushrooms, toasted barley, and black peppercorns. So once again, you kind of have that little bit of spiciness with the peppercorns. So, and the chaga mushrooms and barley really add like an earthiness, just kind of like it's kind of like a little mysterious tasting and earthy and deep. And then I just thought that the name was really perfect too, the Philosopher, for this book. So yeah, that is my choice for that one. This is a really delicious tea. I highly recommend it. I do believe this is on her website right now, so I think you can go buy that if you would like. These are not sponsored. I just really love these lovely ladies that make delicious teas, and I will always send you to them. They are not paying me to say this. Okay, up next, we have another one that is, you know, been making the rounds last couple of years. A lot of people put this sort of on a dark academia list, and it is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. Probably saying that wrong. I probably should have looked up how to say his name before I did this video, and this probably, I would say even more than The Secret History, is very psychological book. Like, this is a psychological thriller for sure. It takes place at Cambridge. There's murders, so it's right up there. I mean, basically all of these books are like universities and murders. It's kind of the whole dark academia thing, is universities and murders. So this takes place at Cambridge. There's a series of murders. The main character is a group therapist, so she has a psychology background. She went to Cambridge. Her niece now goes to Cambridge. One of her niece's friends was the one that was murdered. There's this journal that it's the murderer, but you don't know who the murderer is, but you're reading this, and it's kind of like there's a lot of nurture causing trauma, which causes psychological issues in this book, is kind of the whole base of it, which is really interesting, but once again, very heavy subject matter. If you are easily influenced by books and TV and things, you know, this might make you feel a little bad sometimes. It's a great book, but definitely there's some rough stuff in there. So, but yeah, there's this series of murders. She's trying to figure out who did it. There's this professor that she thinks might be a suspect because he has this group of girls that he tutors that he refers to as the Maidens. And yeah, it's all a little weird. Like, this situation is not ideal. So yeah, I thought this one was really great as well. Sorry about the reflection. And I got this used off of Amazon, so this is an old library copy. Which, I don't know, like, something about the plastic, this, like, plastic that you see on library books a lot, has just a lot of nostalgia for me, because I just, growing up, like, all I did was check books out at the library and read books from the library, so kind of into it. There's some really interesting tie-ins with the Greek sort of pantheon as well, of gods and goddesses. One of the main ones that is in this book that sort of ties in with the story, which I obviously don't want to give too much away, but is Persephone. And I don't know if I'm just basic, but because I feel like Persephone is one of everybody's favorite, but she's one of my favorite goddesses, so I was excited about that. She just has such a cool story and sort of the combination of dark and light, so she's not just a benevolent goddess, and she's not just a malevolent goddess. She's kind of has the duality, which is really interesting. But in this book especially, it kind of focuses on her not just being a nice goddess. I like Persephone. There's a big element about Persephone in this book, and so that is why I chose the tea that I chose for this, which is called, if you can see that, Queen of the Underworld. A forbidden dance of smoky black tea, fiery spice, and bittersweet chocolate. So this is a Persephone-inspired tea, basically, Queen of the Underworld. All the ingredients are smoky black tea, red rose petals, pomegranate, which is Persephone's main jam, cocoa nibs, and vanilla essence. So this is a really delicious one, especially if you like smoky things, which I do. I'm a big fan of things that taste like smoke and things that taste like dirt, which sounds weird, but a lot of really, really earthy teas kind of just taste like dirt or a cave, which I'm into that. So yeah, this is has a lot of things that I really love in it. It's very delicious. And yeah, once again, just really goes perfectly, I feel like, with this book. It's got the spicy note, it's got the pomegranate, it's got the inspiration from Persephone, it's got kind of that smoky, mysterious vibe coming from it that honestly, that honestly is this book in the tea. This is it. You're welcome. And that one is also from the Wild Soma. All right, this is fun. Let's do the next one. Okay, let's talk about If We Were Villains. This book I had not heard of before until I started watching Alexandra Roslin's channel. I'll put her channel link down below. I mentioned it in the last video too. It's one of the book channels I've been watching a lot lately. She just raves about this book. I watched a bunch of her videos and I feel like she mentioned this book in almost all of the ones that I watched because she just loves it so much. And it is definitely dark academia theme. We'll get into that in a minute. But when somebody's so into something and raves about it so much, you're like, well, it can't be that good. You know what I mean? Like, well, I'm probably not going to like it as much as that person, or, something like that. You always doubt, like, not that they love it, but, everybody's taste is different. So when I picked this up to read, which I did because she talked about it so much, it was partly with sort of the mentality of, well, I'm sure it's not going to be that good. You know what I mean? And I just want to say that I was wrong because it is amazing. And she was totally right about that. I would say of all the books I read, this one was actually my favorite this month. I don't think that was influenced by the fact that she liked it so much, because if anything, I feel like that set a really high expectation that made it more likely for me to be let down by this. So that did not happen. It was my favorite of all the ones I read, and it is once again about a group of students that go to a small liberal arts college. The group and the main character that we're following are in the Shakespeare theater program. The premise is this guy is just getting out of jail, and then he's sort of telling the detective that was on this case about what actually happened after he gets out of jail. Somebody dies. He takes the fall for it, but it's sort of implied that it's not necessarily, that he wasn't necessarily the one that did it, but you don't really know what happened for sure. So the book is him telling the real story of what happened to this detective who is no longer with the force. This guy has served his sentence, so it's more just for the detective's sake to like give him the satisfaction of knowing what actually happened, because he just never knew the real story. And I think the detective thought that this guy didn't really do it, but he admitted to it. So, was really engaging, captivating. The characters were interesting. There was heaviness, but not as much. I will say, I think part of the reason I like this one the most was, like, yes, there's somebody dies, and yes, the people in it have issues, but it's not like these kind of issues, if you know what I mean. So if you read this, then you do. And if you haven't read it, then you should read it and you'll know what I'm talking about. So it's a little bit lighter in a way, even though it's still about death and all of that. And it just was really well written. I don't even know like what made this one my favorite, but I just thought it was so good. Obviously, like, also Shakespeare is awesome. I will say I am not by any means an actor. I was in one play in high school just because all my friends were, and I thought it seemed fun, but I'm not a good actor. I just got had like 2 lines or something. But I think if you were an actor and had acted in high school or college especially, you would get even more out of this because you would relate to it even more. I still related to a lot of parts of it, but not so much to the like, oh, we're having to learn our life. I just feel like there's probably a lot of like inside stuff that if you were an actor, you'd be like, oh yeah, I really get that, There's one of the professors in it is really into tea. So that's actually in The Secret History, they drink tea a lot too. I guess tea and dark academia kind of go hand in hand already. Like drinking tea out of a fancy teacup, I feel like kind of has a dark academia vibe anyway, so that works out. So yeah, I highly, highly recommend this. Thank you, Lexi, for talking about this a ton on your channel so that I ended up deciding to read it because I really, really loved it. I would say of all of these, this is definitely, well, I haven't finished the Dante Club yet, but from what I've read of that, I still think that out of all of these, this is the one that I'm most likely to reread. Okay, so for this book, I chose another chai, which I'm sorry about there being 2 chais in this, but I feel like November is the perfect month for chai because it is kind of got those fall spices, but also really sort of good transition into kind of Christmas spices. So I don't know. I just feel like chai is a really good sort of like fall winter transition tea. And this one is also from Gnat and Bee, and it is called Hearthstone Chai. This actually hasn't even been opened yet, but I have had this tea from her before. This is just a new package. It is black tea and rooibos tea. So we do have mostly black teas this time, but the Magpie Chai is a caffeine free if you're looking for that. But this one has black tea and rooibos. Apples, cinnamon, ginger, lapsang souchong, pumpkin seeds, cardamom, black pepper, sunflower petals, vanilla bean, and vanilla essence. I feel like there's a real theme here. I didn't plan this, but literally all of these have peppercorns or pepper in them, which I feel like really goes with that dark academia. It's kind of got that spiciness, but in a more aggressive way than, you know, like cinnamon spice or that kind of thing. And this one has lapsang souchong, which is a little smoky, and it has the pumpkin seeds. I feel like the Magpie Chai is almost more of like a wintry chai, and this one more falls on the side of autumn because it has the pumpkin seeds, it has the apples, cardamom is so delicious, ginger is like one of my favorite things. So yeah, this is a really amazing chai. And I just felt like the If We Were Villains does have, there's Halloween is in it. They do Macbeth. And so I just felt like picking a chai that was a little more on sort of the autumny side went with this book really well. Also, the name Hearthstone Chai, this group of Shakespeare students, their sort of common room in their dorm has this huge fireplace that kind of is central to some of the plot points in the story. So Hearthstone Chai, I thought, was a fitting name for that as well. So that's my last tea and book pairing for this episode. Like I said, since I didn't finish the Dante Club, I didn't read as many books, but I feel like this is still a good amount. I guess I can't read too many each month or I'm going to be going through, I have a lot of teas, but I'm going to go through them pretty quickly if I'm doing like 5 every time. I do really like the aesthetic of dark academia. It really goes well, I think, with a lot of the things that I love. So this was a fun sort of theme to do. I don't necessarily know if I'll do a theme every month for Stories and Steeps, but I might try to. Obviously, December is going to be Christmassy, cozy, wintry books. Well, I've already read a couple of those, so that should be a fun episode. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Buccaneers and Ball Gowns with just an N instead of the word and. I'll put that down below as well in case you want to follow me over there. Thank you for sticking with me with this last little bit of sort of autumny content. My next few videos will be more Christmassy, December. I would really like to know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. If you ever do try any of the teas, please let me know, obviously, what you think about those, if you're enjoying them. Yeah, just if you have any recommendations for December books, I would be happy to hear those as well. I have a few picked out, but you never have too many options, you know. So toss all that down below in the comments. And if you want to see more of these videos in the future, just go ahead and subscribe. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you hanging out with me today, and I will see you next time.